You mentioned donors, and you mentioned university partnerships with regard to Berkeley Global Campus. And you've hinted at a few potential university partners. You said that you traveled to Cambridge. You said that you traveled to Japan.
Did I say that?
I'm pretty sure it was mentioned somewhere.
Was it Cambridge, Mass, or Cambridge?
Cambridge, England,
yeah.
of course. And so I was just wondering, you know, as of yet, there hasn't been any news of a formal partnership, and I know that you want one by the end of this year so that you can break ground on the project. Is there anything holding the process up, or are you getting really close to clinching the deal with one of these universities?
We're having conversations that are getting increasingly detailed and specific with a number of universities, and so I think we'll be ready to make some announcements certainly before the end of the calendar year of 2015. These are enormous commitments, and we don't want to announce something before we actually have worked through enough of the details and enough of the issues that would mean that it would be something we'd have to retract. But I can assure you that there is huge interest. Another model that I had in mind when we had this land and we had the approvals and we didn't have the money coming in from DOE to support the extension of and the expansion of the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, which was the original idea for the campus, was in fact what happened in New York with Governor's Island and Roosevelt Island, where Mayor Bloomberg made available some land in one of the great locations in the United States, just off Manhattan, for universities both locally, and in fact, of course, as you may recall, Stanford was one of them that bid very, very aggressively for the right to move to New York. But of course, got in the end Cornell and Technion Technion University in a partnership to establish a new school of engineering. We have a huge asset, but we actually, in some ways, have a more attractive idea than existed in New York. First of all, we have location. Second, we have location. Location, I think that's the way the term goes. There are two places in the U.S. where I think a lot of international partners would like to have a foothold. One is New York, one is the Bay Area. But we also have Berkeley. And because we are such a great university, when we go and talk to other universities, they get interested very quickly. We already have collaborations, for example, with Cambridge that involve Cambridge University, UK, that involve over 250 faculty. So what we also are looking at are pre-existing research collaborations, also partnerships that are educational in nature, as the predicate for thinking about how we could then move this up a notch and engage in collaboration of a certainly more enhanced kind, but one that nevertheless would be consistent with some of the organic things that are happening across our campus in relationship to other international campuses as well.
So you mentioned the fact that the San Francisco Bay Area is an attractive location. And from yesterday's paper, the headline, one of the headlines, was Student Labor Committee crashes Dirk's update on Berkeley Global Campus at Richmond Bay. And so obviously you're familiar with the fact that there's a lot of concern that building Berkeley Global Campus could displace Richmond residents, it could alter the dynamics of the housing market. And so to your credit, you've established the Richmond Community Working Group to address these issues, but the protesters want a community benefits agreement. Can you guarantee that before the project breaks ground that you will have reached a community benefits agreement or some other legally binding instrument? Or is that not something that you're not a promise you're willing or able to make?
You know, it depends what the promise means. And I don't want to just say, yes, I promise we'll have a community benefits agreement. We can only have a community benefits agreement if the community actually engages us in a way that actually produces, in the end, an agreement that will work for them and work for us. That's why we established the working group, and in fact, the working group is going very, very well. You know, it's very interesting to me that, you know, at Berkeley we have a lot of protests, and I sort of take now for granted that anything that we do that might be new will occasion protests, or disruptors, I should say, since they actually came to disrupt a meeting. I had nothing to do with the meeting. I didn't even know it was taking place, by the way. But anyway, if you actually go to Richmond, meet with the mayor, meet with the city manager, meet with community leaders, you realize they are very anxious for this project to succeed. There is unbelievable enthusiasm in Richmond for this to happen. Now, there's a number of reasons for that. One of them is there are not enough jobs in Richmond, and we are going to provide jobs at a whole variety of different skill levels. Right at the moment, in fact, there's another problem, which is there are not enough skilled workers in Richmond, even for some of the construction projects that we might anticipate to be possible in the early years of the building. So I visited just the other day with the mayor, with Tom Butts, a program called Richmond Build. This is an academy which is actually training local Richmond residents and giving them the kind of skills that they'll need for participating in some of the early phases of the construction of the new campus. When I talked to the people in the program, they couldn't wait for us to get there, and their only complaint was that we had not actually gotten a shovel-ready project with the funds in place to begin. So I think that, you know, in fact, if you go to Richmond and you begin to talk to people there and engage the local situation, you'll see there's huge interest in our being there. Now, that being said, I am well aware and I am deeply concerned about some of the possible collateral effects of unplanned and for that matter, badly planned developments of this kind. Gentrification, it's a big concern. Displacement would be a huge concern. So that's one of the reasons why we have to work not just with community leaders, but we have to work with city managers and leaders as well to ensure that the kinds of things that we want to do will not have those effects. But you know, we're a university with a very deep moral conscience. We start with the idea that we're going to benefit the community as well as the constituencies that are part of this university: students, faculty, staff, alumni. And we will proceed with the kind of deliberation that is characteristic of, I think, the ways in which this university operates in all of its proceedings. But I think the important thing to say is that we are anxious to have dialogue with people who are interested in the project. You don't have to come and disrupt a meeting where we're talking about the early stage of planning in order to have a dialogue. In fact, disruption or a certain kind of performance theater, which is, I think, what often is now, you know, coded as protest, gets in the way of dialogue. We want to engage students. We want to engage community partners. We want to engage union leadership. We want to engage anyone with a real interest in seeing this project work and work for everyone who's involved. And we're ready to do that.